I read this article and I really, really want to talk about it. And front and center in this article is a picture of Tucker and Ben Shapiro. Now, I've made no bones about the fact I think Shapiro's a sellout. He was a sellout during COVID. He's a sellout now. I mean, he's just a shill. Okay, I understand he promotes generally right-wing topics, but he promotes whoever's paying best, to be honest with you. His whole daily call, that whole organization is, I mean, they make an obscene amount of money, and that's good. I'm glad they do, but the money is king there, and that's. I don't mean to be such a purist, guys, but I just don't like Shapiro. He doesn't sit well with me. But anyways, this young kid though, this Opens article, he says, for years, Ben Shapiro was the person I aspired to become, an example of what a young Jewish conservative could accomplish. Before I ever wrote a column, he had already set the standard, nationally syndicated 17, Harvard law grad, founder of America's most influential media. This is singing Shapiro's praises. I don't care. I don't like Shapiro, and I'm glad he was a role model for young Jewish people. You know, that's great. That's cool. You need a role model. They need a role model. Great. If that's who you identify with, good. You could have a worse role model, but I don't like Shapiro because he keeps selling out. I was very disappointed in what he did during COVID, folks. I'm just not going to forget that. It was repulsive to me. His inability to actually take a stand against the jabs and other such things, as so many were dying, just made me sick. So anyways, Shapiro's out there, and in this article, he compares it to Tucker. And he says, Tucker, however, changed his understanding of authenticity. When I met him, he wasn't the polarizing figure people argue about online. He was kind, curious, and fully present. He asked questions not to perform, but to understand in a profession, often driven by ego. That humility was striking. Carlson showed me that sincerity requires honesty. Now, and then he goes on to say that Shapiro and Carlson are two sides of this debate on the right, and he characterizes it as intellectual conservatism and populist realism, and I don't agree with that. I don't at all. Shapiro is not an intellectual conservative. Shapiro is a propagandist, and he promotes whatever propaganda pays highest. The reality is that Shapiro is not, in my opinion, in any way, shape, or form, the intellectual he's held out to be. He's a smart guy for sure, but he uses what he's got to promote what benefits him best, what pads his pocket the most. The sincerity that this young man's talking about with Tucker is what's critical here. Right? Tucker asks real questions. I like Tucker. Tucker is out here and he's asking tough questions. And right now, and the point of this article is this war between the Tucker Carlson side of conservatism and the Ben Shapiro side. And the entire war is about Israel. I mean, that's what this whole thing is about. And I find it appalling because I care about advancing America, right? Yes, I support Israel as a country. I support the Jewish people, but I don't support Benjamin Netanyahu. He's a crook. Benjamin Netanyahu's corrupt. Why is that an issue? Netanyahu's as corrupt as any American, as Joe Biden was. He's just a corrupt politician. I don't have to like him. And why are we letting a divide over a corrupt politician in Israel divide conservatism in America? Well, because too many people like Ben Shapiro are getting bought off. Ben Shapiro makes a ton of money from Israel. It doesn't mean he's wrong about everything, but it means that that's his motive. Why would we start a war? Why do we have a war in America over Israel? It's not enough that we should be dividing our conservative base, and it's certainly not enough we should be attacking our own. We can disagree over Israel without sellouts like Mark Levin and Shapiro out there, attacking our conservative warriors like Tucker Carlson. I don't care that Tucker's got a different view of it and that he's asking questions. He's asking questions that ought to be asked. Just because I support the Jewish people, which I do, and just because I support the state of Israel, which I do, does not mean I support the government of Benjamin Netanyahu, which I don't. Netanyahu spent $2 billion funding Hamas through Qatar. $2 billion. That $2 billion plus what seems like stand down orders led to the October devastation that resulted in so many dead people. Meanwhile, need I remind you that Benjamin Netanyahu supported vaccinating his entire country with these poison COVID jabs? I would argue that Netanyahu's done more damage to the Jewish people than any other person I could think of. I mean, the COVID jabs by themselves were devastating. I, by the way, if you want to, before you call me names, testified in one of the great honors of my life was testifying at a rabbinical court in New York. So don't tell me that I'm anything that's against the Jewish people. I'm not. But just because you're Jewish doesn't mean you can't be corrupt. There are bad people who are white. There are bad people that are Jewish. There are a lot of bad people that are a lot of different things. And yes, we all stand against Islamic terror. And I'm grateful that Israel does what they do on that. But let's be realistic. They stood against Islamic terror while funding it. Benjamin Netanyahu funded it through Qatar. You tell me what's good for the Jewish people? Forcing COVID vaccines? Funding Hamas? I think not. Let me argue that if you actually support Israel and the Jewish people, you should be against Benjamin Netanyahu. But no, we can't talk about that. Why? Because Mark Levin and Shapiro get paid massive money for opposing anyone that opposes Netanyahu. Netanyahu's writing the checks. This isn't about pro or against Israel. And what we've got now is a massive attack machine on conservatives who are asking legitimate questions. Now, I don't always agree with some of the conservative questions that are asked, but I don't care. I don't care that they're being asked. You have every right to ask them. In my estimation, and now listen, some people have gone down these rabbit holes where they talk about these different factions of Judaism. I haven't gotten down that. I haven't. So maybe you've done that. Maybe you know more than me. I don't care. I don't care. I have too many issues in this country to be worried about what's happening in Israel. Do I support the country? Yes. Do I support Jewish people? Yes. Will I continue to support the country of Israel? Yes. Do I support Benjamin Netanyahu? No. He's a crook. I don't like him. I don't believe in him. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've missed something. Maybe I've missed something on all of this. But at the end of the day, I don't give a damn because it's not America. Let's focus on America. Hey, Mark Levin. Hey, Shapiro. If you guys support America, how about you support America? How about you support guys that are asking questions about America instead of constantly attacking anybody who has any questions about corruption where we're spending billions of dollars of foreign aid? We're spending billions of dollars of foreign aid. If there's corruption in that government, we should ask about it. It doesn't mean we don't support the government or the people. It doesn't mean we don't support the nation. It means that their government, just like ours, is corrupt. P.S. Did you attack the people who were attacking Joe Biden? No. Did you say that Tucker Carlson was anti-American when he asked questions about Joe Biden? No, you didn't do that. No. Instead, you attack Tucker Carlson when he asks about a foreign leader. I have questions about a foreign leader. Why was there an apparent stand-down order on October 7th? Why did that happen? Why did Benjamin Netanyahu spend $2 billion funding Hamas through Qatar? I have questions. How did that benefit the Israeli people? I want to know how our tax money that's being spent to protect the Jewish people of Israel, along with the other people of Israel, is it okay that he's using this to fund terrorists? Are we okay with that? I'm not. I'm certainly not going to attack other conservatives in America for asking that question, but I don't think Shapiro or Levin are conservatives in America. These are conservatives that are secondarily focused on American issues because the only focus they care about is the big money they're getting from Israel. I want to support the Jewish people. I don't support them being mandated to take a COVID jab that killed how many? You know what? Let's argue about the real issues here. Let's argue about what's really going on. Oh, no, we can't do that. Can't do that. God forbid that we would get to the root cause or actually argue what's really going on. But instead, we've got this huge divide and this infighting. Now, to this kid's point, this Gregory Lyakov's point, he says that this purity war, disagreement, the moral betrayal, it's destructive. It's just what he said. Quote: "What makes this conflict destructive is it distracts from what actually matters." That is right. With that, I think this young man is dead on. Families are still battling inflation that drains savings. Crime remains high across major cities. Schools continue to fail students in reading, history, and civics. These are issues that should define what conservative mission, not feuds over personality on social media. Darn right. Darn right. And then he goes to point out, and this I agree with 100%. Charlie Kirk understood that. Before his assassination, he tried to bring all factions together, recognizing that conservatism's strength came from persuasion, not exclusion. Under his leadership, Turning Point USA provided students with a forum to debate ideas freely, question without fear, and find a common ground rooted in common principle. Charlie reminded us that disagreement is not disloyalty. Hey, Shapiro and Levin, newsflash. This kid gets it. You don't. Asking questions about how our tax money is spent is not disloyalty. It's a legitimate question, especially when the corrupt leader of that government is doing things that are really, you want to talk, it's not anti-Semitic. Let's be realistic. Benjamin Netanyahu is not being anti-Semitic. He's just a crook. But the results of his actions are dangerous to millions of Israelis. I think what he's doing is appalling. Can you imagine forcing everybody in your country to get the COVID jab? That's what he did. Let's talk about that. You can't be pro-Jewish and pro-mandated COVID jab for Israel, can you? Oh, why will no one make that point? Why isn't Shapiro talking about that? Because he sold out on COVID. Why isn't Levin talking about that? Because he sold out on COVID. Those two both sold out. They're not talking about the death or carnage or chaos that those mRNA jabs unleashed on the Jewish people. No. They want to talk about Tucker as being anti-Semitic. They want to go after conservatives for this, while the real damage is being done by people like them, who sell out on everything. They're sellouts. And this, I think, is foundational. And this is where young Gregory needs a little bit of guidance. He says, quote, "My generation doesn't need more division. It requires leadership that unites conviction with strategy." That's incorrect. Your generation needs to understand that leadership comes from standing for what's right, what's ideologically truthful. In this case, one of your heroes is a sellout. And you got to recognize that that's the problem. The problem here is that you've got some of these people that are willing to sell out. We do need to fight that. We have to stand for what's right, not for what's easy. That's not what's happening here. What's happening here is you've got a couple people that are selling their souls. They're selling out. They're selling out to the corrupt Benjamin Netanyahu administration, who has been a tremendous disservice to Israel and to the Jewish people, who I would argue facilitated October 7th. Just like I would argue that the Democrats were behind J6. And apparently, at some point, looks like our government was behind September 11th. Now we look back. And by the way, why did Building 7 fall over? Why did it collapse in the controlled demo? Oh, we're not supposed to ask that. But I don't mind questioning my country and our leadership. I don't mind calling out the corruption that is just permeating my nation. So why should I care about calling out the corruption in another nation? I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm pro-Jew. If you're Jewish, I believe you have the right to believe and to live however you want. You should have that your rights protected just like I should as a Christian. I believe that your rights should be protected in the same way that mine. And I've fought for that and will continue to. Against all, because I am ideologically pure. I stand behind what I believe in and what's right. I don't care if it's popular. It's still what's right. The right thing to do is to look at this and to say, listen, Netanyahu's a crook. Look at what he's done. Has it been good for the Jewish people? No. Now, I don't agree with the people. There are anti-Semites out there. There really are. And I don't agree with that. I'm sorry, I just don't. I can't hate someone because of their faith or because of that. But that's universal. That's universal. Everybody has the right under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution to believe how they choose. It doesn't mean that you can bring Sharia law to the United States. I don't believe in that at all. I don't like radical Islam. It's not compatible with our Constitution. I also don't like corrupt politicians anywhere. That's the issue. Maybe instead of going after people like Tucker Carlson for asking questions, we should be seeing whether or not there's value to those questions, and then focus on American issues and America first. That's what I think we need. But MAGA right now is divided, and it's divided because there are a certain number of crooks that are willing to put other things ahead of America. I think we need to get back to the focus there. But I would say to young Gregory, young man, you're right. We do need leadership that unites conviction with strategy. But that doesn't exist when the leaders sell out. Unfortunately, that's what's occurring here. He goes on to say the feud between traditional and populist conservatives is weakening the right and empowering the left. Those are the people you're talking about are not traditional conservatives. They're sellouts. They are the swamp. They are the rhinos. They are the problem with the Republican Party. They're the reason that we have people like Lindsey Graham. They're the reason that we have rhino sellouts that have so much power in this country. Because they play just conservative enough to get everybody's attention. They get massive funding. By the way, do you know how much funding I would have if I was willing to sell out? I'm not. But the people like me, they can't let people like me come to power. They can't let a guy like me be as big as a guy like Shapiro because I won't sell out. Because I ask hard questions. And because the people that have money and control the money, like Netanyahu, want to make sure that they're protecting their own. Ben Shapiro is protecting his own. Mark Levin protecting his own, making sure his pockets are taken care of. That's what's happening here. We do need to call that out, and I'm okay with that. If Shapiro and Levin want to back off, I'm all in favor of that. I'm fine with letting them do what they want. And they can be pro-Netanyahu. I don't care if they're pro-Netanyahu. But they need to quit lying. They need to quit pretending that anybody that doesn't like Netanyahu is an anti-Semite. I am a case study in being pro-Jewish, pro-Israel, and anti-Netanyahu. Hey, Ben. Hey, Levin. Why don't you and I debate this? Why don't you and I talk about this? Let's see what you got. I want you to explain to me how you can be pro-COVID jab and still claim to be pro-Jew in light of what Netanyahu did forcing that. I would love you to explain that one to me. I would love anybody to explain how funding Hamas with $2 billion is pro-Jewish or pro-Israel. How is that the case? It's not. You know it. You're hypocrites. You're liars. If you really want to support the Jewish people, maybe you need to actually support the Jewish people instead of the corrupt government of Israel. I support the nation of Israel, the people of Israel, but not the Netanyahu corrupt regime. All right. We need to, hey, by the way, folks, if we're going to fight, we need to stand on principle. Levin and Shapiro have shown that they're not principled. They're not us. They can join us. If they quit attacking us, we're happy to have them back. But until then, they're not conservatives. They're sellouts.